It takes the right skills and the right innovation to design and manage meaningful print marketing solutions. Welcome to Podcasts from the Printerverse, where we explore all facets of print and marketing that create meaningful communications and business success. Now, here's your host, the intergalactic ambassador to the Printerverse, Deborah Korn.
Hey everybody, welcome to Podcast from the Printerverse. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have the Senior Vice President of Production Print Solutions at Konica Minolta, Erik Holdo. Hello, Erik Holdo.
Hello, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do at Konica Minolta, and your history in the print industry?
Sure. I'm the VP of the line of business for graphic communications and industrial print. So what that basically means is I've got responsibility for all things production print that are primarily serving the graphic services, graphic communications market. But that's all of our toner production print products. That's our UV presses, our embellishment and foil MGI line, wide format, the KM1 system, and all of the software solutions that differentiate those products in the market. And so that's my main focus. I've got everything on my team from subject matter experts that are industry renowned and fantastic, incredibly smart people, to analysts that are specific towards UV ink, substrates, color management, design and development, and then I've got product launch folks as well for those software solutions. So pretty busy job, a very busy time at Konica Minolta because we've got so much coming out in these areas. I've been in the business for 31 years. Started off networking Linotype Hell plate setters, basically, which seems like eons ago. And then went to work for Xerox, initially as an analyst and then as a sales specialist for DocuTech. And that's really where I learned my passion for the analyst side of things and going after our business truly as a solution sell, not just as a product, feeds type sell. And from there, after really enjoying my time at Xerox, because we launched DocuTech, I mean, it was a very a transformative time in the industry. I actually had written a business plan for one of my clients who wanted to buy some highlight color PostScript-based machines in 94, 95. And he actually came to me and says, hey, my board likes this so much, we want to stake you to open your own print shop. So I opened up a transactional. Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. And the money was good and everything else. I had a minor ownership stake because they really put up all the money, and we ended up having 13 high-speed devices in there, and insertion equipment, and grew the business from zero to several million in a couple of years, and then sold that off. Went on a little hiatus and was the chief operating officer for a mortgage company that was online.
Traitor.
Did that for a year just to see if I could make a difference there, and I proceeded to shut down that company. I bet
you they did the best print they had ever done, ever.
They did no print whatsoever. Oh. No, the funny thing is that the board hired me basically to say, hey, do we shut this thing down or keep going? It was one of the first internet lenders, and this one just wasn't ready for print time.
Thank you.
So next, I went back into the service bureau business with another service bureau. This one, we were focused on direct mail as well as microfilm blowbacks, which back in the late 90s was a big thing with litigation, document productions, and things like that. And I ended up writing a lot of software around the high-speed TIFF printing area that gave us an upper hand. And again, we grew that again, and that ended up being purchased by a company called Continental Graphics, which many people may remember. And then that got sold to Boeing. So left there, went to Icon, was a national solutions manager for Icon for a few years, then went to Danka as the VP of the high volume group there, and then Danka was purchased by Konica Minolta, so I took over production print at Konica Minolta. And but I'll tell you, my main heritage was really when I had to make the money with these machines that we provide our clients.
Right.
That was the most important and most meaningful part of my career, was understanding that, you know what, I need to be able to enable people to make money with these products and with the solutions that we sell.
And I think that's why we get along so well, because you are a printer to me. Like when I talk to you, I can tell that I ran a print shop in my blood. Yeah.
And I frankly, I always miss it. I don't miss it, but I miss it at the same time, because it's a creative outlet. It's amazing to see and to deal with the end customer.
Right.
And I sometimes miss that, because that's where you get into some of the demand generators and brand owners. Mm-hmm. Although we're starting to really get more into that now with some direct interaction, helping our printers move into that space, move into the brand management space, and dealing more with and helping educate the demand generators out in the market.
This podcast from the Printerverse is brought to you by Print Media Center. Print Media Center provides printspiration and resources to the print and marketing community with real-world insight for success, whether you're an industry supplier, print service provider, print customer, or consultant. Visit printmediacenter.com and connect with the Printerverse. Print long and prosper.
I want to circle back for a moment and talk about who your customers are, and especially what types of shops that they have, and what kind of vertical markets they are serving.
For the most part, unlike some of our competition, most of our installs are in the graphic communications market. So that's basically the print for pay marketplace in one way, shape, or form, to put it sort of a brutal term. But
and Erik, I just have to interrupt you for a second. This is all of a sudden, this is like the third day in a row I've heard print for pay. Is this a new expression?
It's an old term.
Why is it making a comeback? I hate it.
I do too. But I think it's just to differentiate between the industrial print marketplace and the implant marketplace and all that. So that's a very important part of our strategy, is to go after the graphic communication space. The term print for pay is not actually new. It's old, and for some reason I hear it more as well now. But it's simply to basically say, I make a living at what I'm printing, rather than being an implant, for example.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
Or a captive data center. And if you look in the market, all of these parts of the industry seem to wane about every 4 or 5 years. You see a cycle of insourcing versus outsourcing. And this has been an extended outsourcing period during a lot of the consolidation and whatnot. But I still think we will see that fluctuation. And that's the thing. One thing that concerns me a little bit about the very traditional parts of the market in graphic communications is that so much of that can be insourced effectively now with some of the products that are in the marketplace in general. But so that's the difference, though. Print for pay. I get paid for what I print. Cost center based printing is an implant or data center type. And we also, so our market is predominantly 65% in that print for pay space. Now, the reason we don't call that graphic communications is that also includes things like franchise printers. And franchise printers serve a great part of the marketplace. A lot of that small business and home office business. I use them all of the time myself.
Me too.
And it's a very important area for us. We have relationships with all of the major franchise printers in the market. So that's a good amount of that business is there. But then the rest is really in this, in the general print for pay, commercial print, offset to digital transfer type houses. Now, we used to be more in the transactional space as well, for straight transactional. But as products have changed there, and away from cut sheet, more to continuous feed with some of the high-speed products on the market. That's been an area where we've stepped away for a little bit, just because we didn't really have the right product in that space. We've actually now brought a product into that space that is very exciting and very disruptive. Believe it or not, if there can be anything disruptive in the transactional printing market, this is one of those things that can. And that, coupled with some of our differentiated solutions that we bring into play for that type of an operation, I think is going to be great in the future. But so most of what we're talking about, though, is a lot of book printing, direct mail. I'd say if I was to prioritize, direct mail is probably number one. Book printing is number two, and package and labeling is very quickly becoming number three. Okay?
Why do you think that Konica is their machine of choice?
I think it's reliability and a cost point, a footprint. Many of those operations don't have a lot of space. They want a simple user interface that's consistent across all the products, and it needs to be at the right price point, quite frankly. And we are, I'm not going to say price is not what I like to call an advantage, but in that particular space it is, because you've got much lower volumes in most of those operations, not all, but in most of them, much lower volumes than you might typically put. But the turnaround time requirements are quicker, so they need something that's fast, that gives them professional quality. And the most exciting thing for that part of the market now is that we've now enabled all of our products with push button calibration, push button linearization. With a single push button, they can basically conform to Grackle or whatever their particular standards may be, and it will automatically profile stocks. So that ability to simplify the color management process is really making it even more important out in the marketplace. We recently placed a very large number of units across the nation in a very large franchise print operation because specifically of that capability. Yeah.
Let's talk about the acquisition of MGI for a moment, which is, print specialty finishing is definitely a way for people to differentiate themselves. But what would you say the value proposition of this partnership is for the print community?
The embellishment market, the decorative market, most people have probably read Jim Hamilton's Beyond CMYK study. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to do it. It really talks to some of the trends that we're finding to be absolutely spot on in his predictions. One of the most important predictions was really, what are people willing to pay? The end users, what are they willing to pay for some of these embellishments? And that was the real test for us, because making the investment in MGI is all about spot or dimensional UV and embossed foil, digital foil. And those were the two things that were actually at the top of that chart as far as what people were willing to pay for. Embellishments such as a spot color or metallic inks was much, much lower on the scale. So it coincides perfectly with the MGI purchase. Now, the thing MGI gives us is not only they've been around this market for a very long time, and they extend the capability of some of our machines. They're Meteor devices, which are incredible. They lay down toner, then it can lay down foil, then it can print on top of the foil to give you essentially unlimited colors of foil with a single base color, and it provides amazing output. But that particular unit was actually formed by them buying prior to our purchase, or our investment, I should say, of MGI. They were buying our units and sort of reverse engineering them themselves, because they liked the fusing areas so much and they liked the toner so much that they took it, reverse engineered it, and they were starting to be able to print on fabrics and plastics and 400 GSM, 500 GSM pieces that were way beyond the standard areas that we could use at that time, that we could print on that time. So they really showed themselves to be a value-added partner with that. And then we made an initial 10% investment. And as we started investigating the embellishment decorative market, that's where we made the rest of the investment into nearly 41% now. And we sit on their board, and it's a fantastic relationship. One of the other things that they bring to market, though, is something that people aren't as aware of. They also own a company called Ceradrop. And Ceradrop gets us now into the printable electronics market.
Really?
Absolutely. And you couple that with some of our technology, like our OLED technology out of Japan, and being able to combine the two so you can have printed electronics triggering OLED technology. Now you've got the ability to light up everything from greeting cards to packaging.
Wow.
Very, very exciting stuff.
That is really cool, Eric.
Now, the conductive electronics, the nice thing about it is it also gets us into things like NFC printing and chipless RFID. So NFC is near field communication. That's when somebody takes their Samsung and they tap it to yours, and your contact information flows over to them. Well, imagine a business card that has an NFC antenna on it, and you just tap it to a device that has an NFC receiver and transfer that information to them directly. So a non-electronic piece of paper transmitting information to an electronic device. It's a very exciting concept.
You're the first person who's said this, by the way, and I've been doing lots of podcasts recently.
Well, I like to think that I sort of, my job is to a certain extent to be looking out in the future and to be somewhat of a technology evangelist.
I love it. Your geek history comes into play here. I'm loving it. Go ahead, keep going, because I'm fascinated.
Well, the fun thing about it is my dad was an electrical engineer. And so I learned about electronics I was a total geek. So in the printable RFID side, though, this is really big for label and packaging market as tracking of shipments and tracking of counterfeit becomes more important. The big cost in RFID is the chip itself. It's about 95% of the cost. So this allows them to get rid of the chip and actually print the antenna to provide the same signal that the RFID chip that had to be encoded would provide. So it's very exciting because, again, now it opens up the label market, the packaging market, and others as well, just security in general.
Now, this also kind of takes us into the marketing service provider arena, if you think about it, because, okay, my printer can print a chip, fantastic. Where is the experience coming from? Where is the programming for all of that coming from? Do you need an outside person? Do they have to have an inside person? Which brings us back to, should printers print, or should they be opening up to hiring new people or squatting up, as I think? And what is Konica's vantage point on that, and how are you helping customers figure that all out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when it comes to things like RFID and NFC, if somebody's going to enter that marketplace, it's usually because they've got clients that have a current application for it that they're doing through other means. Okay. And this allows them to service that market at a quicker and on-demand, quick turnaround area. So they don't have to worry as much about the programmatic changes or things like that. It helps to have somebody that can speak technology, right, and that understands something about electronics. But I don't see that having to be a main push for them. However, when you talk marketing services, now that's a different story. We have a marketing multi-channel marketing solution that we call Engage It Cross Media. That's a great tool for multi-channel marketing across social and everything else that everyone else has, right? And it's not uncommon in the marketplace. Everybody's got their choice. Well, what we decided to do is, as we looked at adoption rates of this type of solution, including ours, we said, this isn't being used properly because people don't have that experience. They don't have the creative agency experience. to really pull this off. So what we did is we partnered with a creative agency, and now we're bringing on a couple of others to utilize the platform on behalf of the client and provide them complete creative services in addition to the multi-channel communications. So now they can consult on an entire campaign, not just execute the campaign.
Does someone help them, or they just have resources that they need to pull from?
No, they actually. So we go, we meet with the client, understand what their requirements are and how deep they want to get into the marketing, the multi-market campaign industry.
Okay.
In other words, do they want to get social? Do they want to use QR codes? And what's the application that they currently have? So if this is just a printer, in many cases, again, it's a printer who has an existing client, and he wants to bring in a closer relationship with that client, because let's say at the moment everything he's doing is commodity based,
right?
And that's not uncommon. So this allows them to differentiate and say, hey, not only can we produce all this for you and send out the emails and send out the text messages and make the social posts, but we now have an entire creative team that will help you execute it as well. And the reason that that's important is in order to be successful in that part of the market, you have to have the in-house marketing or the creative agency that a corporation may be using. You have to have them involved in the development and creation of the pieces.
Right.
And it's no longer a matter of creating a static piece. We're talking about having to leverage full variable and what is the customer experience once they engage, and how do I tie that to brick and mortar purchasing, and how do I tie it to other areas? So for us, we're moving this even one step further. This next year, I have a big focus that I'm putting on retail services, meaning allowing a graphic communications client of ours to go out into the market and provide retail services on a much grander scale to deal with the brand management requirements, to deal with everything from things like looking at where people are spending their time in a production area, to what they're purchasing, when they're purchasing it, how it interfaces with their online purchasing, and how do we collect analytics around all of that. It's all about the analytics. It's about heat mapping a retail floor. It's about being able to provide not just point of sale posters and foam core mounted pieces, but flexible signage, large scale signage and things like that. Being able to provide that complete set of services. So the retail space is really this is the cross now between marketing services and retail. They now have to join together. And I think if you look at Adobe and their creative marketing cloud that they've created, they're expecting the same thing. They're really focused on the retail experience, the analytics, and the marketing communication side of it as well.
If you like this podcast, try our other podcasts from the Printerverse. Listen long and prosper.
I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but isn't the retail footprint shrinking in the United States?
It's becoming more specialized. It's actually not shrinking. We've had continued retail increases in retail sales.
Aren't they shutting down Walmart stores and
you know what they're opening up? Amazon Go
stores, right?
Amazon Go, exactly. Right. It's not about the big box store anymore. It's about the combination of the experience of what I do on my iPad or on my iPhone or my laptop, and how that is meaningful in my experience when I go to that brick and mortar operation.
Right. I mean, I was just being facetious too, because I knew people were going to be thinking that. But honestly, that retail space environment is still ripe for a print makeover, however you look at it. The floor, the walls, the windows, the tags. I mean, everything you were just saying. And even if there's less of them, it doesn't matter. They're still free. It's wide open game at the moment. So I think it's a brilliant move.
It's about specialization and being able to provide better services.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this before we sign off, and thank you for your time so much, of course, and for sponsoring Podcast from the Printerverse. Always appreciate when Konica Minolta is in the posse. What if you were going to give the commencement speech at your university? What would you say the future of print is?
That's a great question. I think print is, of course, not dead, as many of us have already said. The expansion in print is an exciting opportunity for people. We're actually seeing people, we're working with universities all the time, with interns and with educational programs to teach them about the new market, about the demand generation side of it, and what's possible and what's feasible in the marketplace now, because everything is changing. This is no longer about just providing a book or a direct mail piece. It's much more experiential. Mm-hmm. So print is changing, mm-hmm. but that change is coming towards the confluence of technology, new tech, and the exciting areas, and the traditional print side, and how those two are now going to interplay together. So it's no longer your father's print shop anymore. And I think we've seen that in the market. I think we've seen the companies in print that are doing very well are those that have been able to diversify and to bring in more of a multimodal rather than multi-channel experience.
I mean, and not only have we seen that, basically this entire conversation was your commencement speech, because never have I thought of print as much as being a technology than I have during this conversation. So thank you so much for that. Really, you've pushed my mind to a new level. And that printed electronic thing, I don't know when that's starting, but I'm in. Let's play. Let's light up something. I want to light up like everything in the Printerverse this year.
That's great.
Awesome, Erik Holdo. Thank you so much. Looking forward to more discussions with you, and have a great day.
Thank you.
You've been listening to podcasts from the Printerverse. We'd love to hear your feedback on our shows and topics that are of interest for future broadcasts. Please connect with us through printmediacenter.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcasts for alerts on new shows. Until next time, thank you for joining us and listening to Podcasts from the Printerverse. Print long and prosper.